don't know how this will go.
無理だと思うよ。
Right.
諦めんなよ
I like how he didn't even for 1 second consider this. Hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm Kaylee and I'm back today with some more Given. I'm a little bit nervous for today's episode because where we left off was a little bit rough. We're in a rocky spot right now. Ritsuka has just heard from this classmate that I actually can't stand. This rumor about Mafuyu, basically how he has this ex-boyfriend who is no longer alive and that he is somehow partially at least responsible for this, which I still can't really comprehend. And maybe there's context when I find out the full story, but I just can't imagine how sweet little baby Mafuyu could be a reason behind this or a cause of this. I'm very curious how Ritsuka will respond to this. Like I said in the last video, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt and assume that he's not going to automatically judge Mafuyu for this or just like take the rumor at face value. My hope would be that he addresses this rumor with Mafuyu, one, so that Mafuyu knows that this rumor is going around, because I don't trust this girl to keep it between her and Ritsuka, especially because like now the girl who told her is also involved. She just seems like kind of a loudmouth, so I have a feeling that she will tell more than Ritsuka, especially if she doesn't get her way. Like that's just the vibe that she's giving me. So I would love for Mafuyu to at least have a heads up that that's happening, and then also so that Ritsuka can get the story for himself from Mafuyu's point of view. I just hope that he would trust Mafuyu enough to like ask, right? And respect him enough to ask. The other thing that I'm just like dying to figure out is what's going on with Aki. When the show starts and you meet Aki, you kind of just get this vibe that he's a college student who is, you know, kind of broke because he's a college student and he's in a band, and bands are expensive because instruments and equipment are expensive. And so he talks about all these part-time jobs he has, and they really hammer into Mafuyu how important it is to like make money because you're basically just kind of broke when you're in a band. On top of that, he's kind of on and off dating Ritsuka's sister. Like that is something that I feel like we can confirm at this point. And on top of that, he's like low-key leading Haruki on. Like, I don't know, maybe that's not purposeful, but obviously like touching the hair, just these little things, especially because it's pretty evident that Haruki has feelings for him. So just these little things, it feels like subtle flirting, but now I'm kind of confused because he went back to this like modern mansion and parked his bike in a nice garage and then walked up to this like extremely elegant place with 2 coffee cups to some guy rolling over in bed being like, oh, you're home, welcome home. And I'm confused by that. I really want to like his character because I actually really do like his character, but now I'm just getting very weird vibes from him. I'm rooting for him and Haruki to be together. I feel like Ritsuka's sister, she will be fine. She'll survive. She'll find a nice guy elsewhere. I just want them to be our side couple, and now I'm having like mixed feelings about his character. If you want to stick around, go ahead and hit subscribe. The uncut version of this reaction will be over on Patreon, so I'll put that link in the description box below if you want to check that out. But now let's get right into the episode.
佐藤君と関わるのは危ないんじゃない?
No, I actually
傷の
hate
つい
her.
た CD みたいに。
去年突然付き合ってたら自殺したって
な
うち見てよ植木の描いた似顔絵が
Oh
やばい
man. Thank goodness someone interrupted, because number one, I just don't like her because again, it's like she was seeking out gossip about Mafuyu just so that she could hang out with Ritsuka, and it's like, it just felt so unnecessary in the first place. Even if someone else told it to her, it just felt like she was like searching for dirt on him or something. And then also I don't like her because I feel like the way to handle this shouldn't be just like dropping it on him in the middle of this class. Like why, if you were actually concerned about him and actually cared about him, you would have just pulled him aside or been like, hey, can I talk to you after school? Like if that was a genuine concern you had, but it just feels like you're trying to sabotage what he's got going on. And I don't like that.
ごめん
何が
最後の一言余計だった
I
付き合
mean,
ってたとかも
yes.
噂だから話半分だと思って
Make conversation is crazy and so,
でも
それユキのギター
oh no.
なんだそれなんなんだこの絵づくみたいな奇妙な感覚
What is the feeling? Is it like jealousy that he's dated someone, or just like feeling left out because he doesn't know?
はい。
なんか知り合い来てるよ。
いや、
Oh no.
積もる話があるなら持って帰っていいよ。
マジっすか。
I'm actually happy this interaction's happening though
構えんな
because
よ。
I want to know what the deal is.
別にお前を糾弾しに来たわけじゃない。
Hmm?
葬式以来だな。ちゃんと話すんの。やっぱ音楽始めたんじゃねえか。ユキのギターだろ。それ。おばさんが持っていけって。
No.
ああ。お前ら半ば親公認だったもんな。
Oh wow. Okay. So that's quite unusual in these stories. I feel like that both sets of parents would give approval for that kind of relationship. I am curious then, like, what drove Yuki to make the ultimate decision, because I feel like if you weren't being accepted by the people around you or that you cared about, that would certainly be some mental incentive, I think, if you're in just a really dark place. But if you had both of your parents' approval, I'm just curious what she meant by him being part of it or part of the reason that it happened.
愛子さんにも会ってねえんだろ。音楽始めたらしいって伝えたらマジで喜んでたからな。ただ俺には真冬が前向きにそれを始めたのか、それとも未だに囚われてる的なことなのか微妙だなと。
しっかり糾弾しに来てるね。
Okay, but it's not as sad as I thought it was gonna be.
どっちなの？
俺にもわかんないよ。
So it kind of feels like they're just worried about him,
柊。悪い、遅
you
れた。
know?
静住おっそ。お。真冬と会ったよ。
Oh.
あいつ今バンドやってんだぜ。何しずちゃん。
お前が気に病むことじゃねえだろ。
病むよ。しょうがないじゃん。俺たちみんな。
Oh, wow. That's context we didn't have before. I think when you first got introduced to these two people specifically, and specifically the one that he was talking to, it did kind of seem like, especially with the information, that he feels somewhat responsible, or people think he was somewhat responsible for what happened. It kind of feels like they're gonna be angry with him for doing music because it reminds them of Yuki or something, but it just kind of seems like they're really concerned about him, and maybe the whole element of him kind of dropping off the face of the earth and not talking to anybody after the funeral, especially if they were friends before, could just be like highly concerning to them. Like they could just be very worried that he is not in a great place and they don't want the same thing to happen to him. And they're probably not trying to go to another funeral. So now I think that would make a lot more sense and be a lot less like sinister than it seemed when we first met that character.
あの日聞いたことを保留にすることにした。
ただいま。
お邪魔します。
Oh man.
おかえり。
秋彦があんたに用事だってよ。
ああ、いいもん持ってきてやったぞ。意外性あるけど、俺はこれ真冬の声とも合うと思う。
Okay.
から、チョッパ屋でドラム打ち込んでデータにしてきたから。
Oh.
お、頑張れ。
Wait, I
もう少し
love
でこっちの
this.
世界に戻ってこれるぞ。俺は。
Mm.
それに、確かにあいつの声は綺麗系だけど、歌ってんの聞いてっとさ、すげえ劇場みたいなのを感じるわけ。叫び声にならない叫び声みたいなのが。 わかります。だから俺もバシバシ太鼓叩いてきたんだけど。なんなんすかね、あれ。俺、あれ聞くとほんといたたまれないんす。
I love that he's asking him this because I do think that regardless of what's going on with Aki that we don't know, he is and seems to be pretty emotionally intelligent and wise in these types of situations. And I feel like Ritsuka is just struggling to understand like what his feelings are, both about the voice but also about like Mafuyu in general and like what he's experiencing and the feelings he's having when he's with him, which I think is why, of course, like he's struggling hearing what his classmate told him as well, where he's like, what is this feeling? And it's probably more than just like concern. It's probably something a lot more like selfish in a sense too, that he doesn't fully understand.
腹の底がムカムカするっつうか、なんか叩き壊したくなるっつうか、およそ穏やかな感情とはいえ。
Man, he should never laugh. If that's the laugh,
タバコ吸いて
we don't need it.
むって。
Mhm.
真冬に歌詞書かせろよ。正直めっちゃ難しいと思うけど、俺はあいつにやらせるべきだと思うわ。
全く同じこと考えてました。
I don't know how this will go.
無理だと思うよ。
No, right.
諦めんなよ。
I like how he didn't even for one second consider this.
高いと思う。目のうじうじを全部出せ。言語化して表現しろ。そういうの苦手。殺すぞ。
They're like, we told him to communicate, but this is not what we meant, you know?
頑張りたまえ。上司かよ。
Okay, it's getting better.
何書けばいいの？
音楽はノリだよ。
最悪のアドバイスだぞ。それ
Yeah, truly.
なんかお前。
あとさ、
Oh no.
自分の恋愛体験とかは
Oh no.
鉄板じゃん。
黙りたまえ。
上司かよ。てか俺今度はまともなこと言ったよ。
黙りたまえ。
Yeah, okay, see, this is like, they are two very different people. Aki has like a deep emotional intelligence despite whatever's happening. I keep saying that because we don't know what's going on with him, but he's got like a deep emotional intelligence, so he can probably sense that like deep down already Ritsuka has some type of feeling for Mafuyu, regardless of what that is or not knowing what it is yet. So the suggestion of just like throwing out the idea that he write about past relationships on a song that Ritsuka wrote, specifically the melody for, is kind of crazy and just a little bit like not in touch with the moment. You know, he's not reading the room very well. Aw.
今その話題。
Yeah.
俺ん中で地雷。蓋をしても中身が消えてなくなるわけはなく。
Let's just talk about it, you
腹
know?
の底に溜まったもやは、すでに異臭を放ち始めている。俺に気を使ってくれたんだと思います。
Yeah.
なんで？真冬恋バナは地雷なの？じゃあ恋の歌は難しいか。
好きな人っていますか？
俺は、
もし、その人がある日突然、世界からいなくなったら、なんて言います？恋しい？
ちょっとそれは、なんて言えばいいかわかんない。
俺もです。
This is like the most vulnerable conversation he's had thus far. What a random person. I have just like such a bad feeling about this because I really do think that Ritsuka cares about him and is going to develop a lot of feelings if he hasn't already. But I don't know that like Mafuyu is mentally ready to move past what happened or to even be open to that idea. And so I just don't want Ritsuka to get hurt because I love him so much. So that would make me kind of sad. I mean, I'm sad for Mafuyu already, but.
歌詞なんて書けばいいんだろう。上野山くんもバスケ？
おお、バスケ部様と元バスケ部。
バスケ部多いね。
真冬っち敵か。
クラス対抗なんだから仕方ないだろ。
一緒に戦ってきた仲間じゃん。
ぼーっとしてるな。
おあれで考えてるらしい。俺が歌詞考えろっつったから。
何歌詞って？
Yeah, I feel like this is going to be a real big challenge for him. Like, as someone who doesn't really know how to identify his emotions, I think it's going to be hard to properly convey them in words if he can't even like think about what they are, you know?
Yayoi, 冷めんぞ。
Oh, I thought he was like snooping on her phone for a second until I read it. I feel like he's walking places he used to go with Yuki for some reason. Like that's the vibe I'm getting, like places they used to go together, or like that he spent time with his friends as a group when they were kids. Maybe to get inspiration for the lyrics or to try to like understand how he's feeling.
いらっしゃいませ。
Hmm.
太鼓叩き直してみたから後で聞いてみて。
うん。データで送ってもよかったのに。
I am so curious about what's going on with him. Like I'm dying to find out.
なんかさ、真冬昔何かあったのかな。
なんで？
この前の練習の後、真冬とちょっと話したんだけど。
お前のそういうとこ尊敬するわ。
え？
サイフォンでコーヒー入れられるし。
米殺しやめて。
You know what I actually really appreciate about the bandmates is like they've all heard or observed parts of conversation that would indicate that there's something so much deeper happening with Mafuyu, and they all have really respected his privacy enough and him as a person enough to feel it out in his own time while still giving him the space and the platform to say what he wants to say, right? Like the song is a perfect avenue for him to start to work through his emotions and talk through what might have happened in his past without having to be so, I don't know, direct or one-on-one or like a therapy session. So they're giving him the platform to do it, but like they've each heard different things, right? Like Ritsuka heard the thing from his classmate, said nothing to no one. Aki overheard their conversation that night that he ran away from Ritsuka and like hasn't said anything to anyone. And then now we're having this conversation and he is saying like, oh, we had a conversation, but he is not saying what Mafuyu said to him. So it just feels very respectful, very not gossipy, and I like that they're giving him the space but still trying to push him to own his feelings and emotions a little bit more. I fear he might need therapy though, you know? Guys, after reading Low Tide and Twilight, if you know, you know, I'm so concerned anytime a depressed MC walks toward the ocean. It's like trauma. So I wonder if that's him trying to convince himself that he's not lonely or him trying to figure out if he is, right? Because just being surrounded by people doesn't mean that you're not lonely. But I think for him, it could be like he's trying to understand and identify his feelings, and he is thinking about it and thinking like, I'm not lonely because now I have these people that are surrounding me and I feel like I'm not lonely. Or if he's just trying to convince himself that he's not.
何言ってんだ。ただの球技大会だろ。
ただの？俺たちあんなに毎日バスケにかけてきたじゃん。
上野山、試合までまだあるから、どっかで寝てくれば。時間になったら電話すっから。
I also hope that Mafuyu's team wins. Ugh. I can't tell if I'm being too harsh, but I really dislike her. Oh no. How do they sleep just like sitting up?
出番まで充電する。
ああ、しくった。今正直二人きりになりたくなかった。まだこいつに対して考えがまとまってねえのに。
Oh, this is making me kind of sad. That's not really what I thought he was gonna think and say. Okay, are we gonna get some opening up?
頑張ってみるよ。本当に好きな人がいたんだ。まだ俺はこれ以上の言葉を持てない。けど伝えたいことはあるって。ごめんね。
Oh no. Pretending to be asleep is kind of crazy, but I also
好
get
きな
it.
人ああこれは嫉妬だ
Okay, we got the answer. Okay. Okay, so my biggest question was about to be, what are the feelings that Ritsuka is having? Because I couldn't tell at first if it was like a judgment or an uncertainty about how to feel about Mafuyu as a person, or if it was him having a feeling of jealousy, knowing that Mafuyu has loved somebody in the past and knowing that the death part of it could cause those feelings to linger a lot longer. But obviously now we know that it was jealousy, which is a tough emotion and a complicated one because obviously there's probably part of him that feels a lot of sympathy for Mafuyu having to go through that in the first place. But then there's also that selfish part of him, which I said earlier in the episode, of feeling jealous because he has these feelings that he hasn't even really been able to understand or process. Like he obviously has them, but I think this actually might cause him to truly understand what those feelings are, because I think until you feel genuinely jealous of someone else's ex or a person that was in their life, it could just be him not fully understanding that there is a significant feeling there for Mafuyu. And so I think this now might put that into perspective for him. But also now it's like a devastating thing where he has to balance being like a sympathetic friend and support person and being like jealous and hurt by knowing this, which is really tough. So I feel for him. I am glad to know that the friends from middle school or childhood aren't like angry with him. It seems to be that they're just very concerned about him, that he has kind of cut off all contact, has really separated himself. And I think that they are just really concerned for his mental health. They don't want to lose another friend. They want him to be able to move on with his life and be happy, which is so much more positive than I had originally thought. So I actually appreciate that part. I'm really glad that Mafuyu opened up to Ritsuka at the end of the episode, because honestly, like, I didn't dislike the conversation that he had with Haruki. It was just the fact that he hadn't had those vulnerable thoughts or moments about it with Ritsuka yet. And I felt like that should come first, right? Because he definitely has the closest relationship with Ritsuka. And I think Ritsuka would be hurt if he knew that there was a conversation that he wasn't a part of before. No update on the Aki situation outside of the fact that obviously he's still kind of hanging out with Ritsuka's sister, although he did come there for Ritsuka, so maybe they're not really hanging out, and she seemed pretty salty about it. Overall, I'm just pretty concerned for Ritsuka because as much as I have so much sympathy and I love Mafuyu, they're just in such different places right now. Like Ritsuka just coming around to these feelings, like really there's nothing in his way. There's no roadblocks for him, I don't think. For Mafuyu, I feel like he's just not even in a place to understand his grief. He definitely hasn't moved past the grief. I think the music might help, but I don't even know that he's in a place to receive feelings from anybody or to think about anybody else in that way right now. And my hope for the rest of the series is that he's able to work through that grief and those emotions through the music, and that Ritsuka is able to work past the jealousy and the feelings and be there to support him, and then they can end up happy. Will that happen? I don't know. Probably not. I'm just getting weird vibes from it, so I'm a little bit nervous. But thank you so much for watching. If you want to stick around, go ahead and hit subscribe. The uncut version of this reaction will be over on Patreon, so I'll put that link in the description box below if you want to check that out. And I will see you guys next time for some more Given. Bye.